Hello champions and happy Tuesday. Today we're going to talk about how to solve fraction word problems with adding and subtracting fractions. I know that you're going to crush it. So does Mr. Smiles. Let's get going on our lesson. Take a look at the first do now question. Simplify 10/15ths. What is the largest number that I can divide both 10 and 15 by? I can divide both 10 and 15 by 5. When I divide 10 divided by 5 and 15 divided by 5, what's my new fraction? It's 2/3. Take a look at the second do now question. What's 3/5 minus 1/4? What's the first thing I need to do if I'm going to subtract two fractions that don't have the same denominator? I need to find the least common denominator. So, list the multiples of 5 and 4 to find the least common denominator. What is it? The least common denominator is 20. Now I need to change each fraction so that the denominator is 20. When I change 3/5 so that the denominator is 20, what's the new numerator? Well, 5 times 4 is 20, 3 times 4 is 12. When I change 1/4 so that the denominator is 20, what's the new numerator? Well, 4 times 5 is 20, 1 times 5 is 20. 1 times 5 is 5. So 1/4 is equal to 5/20. Now I can subtract 12/20 minus 5/20 is 7/20. Let's evaluate. When I evaluate, I can start by doing anything in parentheses. What's 3 plus 2? It's 5. What's 4 plus 3? It's 7. Now I can copy everything else down. 2 times 5 minus 7. What should I do next? I should multiply 2 times 5 because it's in grouping symbols. What's 2 times 5? 2 times 5 is 10. What's 10 minus 7? 10 minus 7 is 3. The final answer is 3. The next question asks, would the sum of 3/8 and 1/3 be more than 1 or less than 1? Well, 3/8 is less than 1/2, and 1/3 is less than 1/2. When I add the two of them together, that would make their answer less than 1 because neither one is larger than 1/2. Now let's dive into our lesson. Take a look at the 4 problems on page 2. The first problem says, Carrie bought a cake for her birthday. Her sister ate 1/2 of the cake. Carrie ate 1/5 of the cake. How much more of the cake did Carrie's sister eat than Carrie? What kind of problem is this? This is a subtraction problem because I'm comparing two quantities. I need to subtract 1/2 the amount her sister ate minus 1/5 the amount that Carrie ate. What's the first thing I need to do to be able to subtract these fractions? I need to find the least common denominator. Find the least common denominator now. The least common denominator is 10. Now I need to change both fractions so that they have a denominator of 10. When I change 1/2 so that the denominator is 10, what's the new numerator? Well, 2 times 5 is 10. 1 times 5 is 5. When I change 1/5 so that the denominator is 10, what's the new numerator? Well, 5 times 2 is 10. 1 times 2 is 2. Now my fractions are ready to subtract. What's 5/10 minus 2/10? 5/10 minus 2/10 is 3/10. Carrie's sister ate 3/10 more of the cake than Carrie did. Let's look at another problem. Molly and Pete went to CC's Pizza Buffet. While they were there, Molly ate 5/8 of a pizza. Pete ate 1/3 of a pizza. What fraction of a pizza did they eat all together? What kind of problem is this? This is an addition problem because it's asking me to combine two quantities. What's the first thing I need to do to be able to add these two fractions? I need to find the least common denominator. Go ahead and find the least common denominator now by listing the multiples of 8 and 3. The least common denominator is 24. Once I've found the least common denominator, I need to change both fractions so that they have a denominator of 24. How do I change 5/8 so that the denominator is 24? I multiply by 3 in the numerator and the denominator. What's the new numerator? The new numerator is 15. 5/8 is the same as 15 over 24. How do I change 1/3 so that the numerator and denominator create an equivalent fraction and the denominator is 24? I multiply by 8. What's the new numerator? The new numerator is 8. 1/3 is the same as 8/24. Now I can add my fractions, 15 over 24 plus 8 over 24. When I add 15 over 24 plus 8 over 24, what is my result? Together, they ate 23 over 24 of a pizza. Now let's use the same information to answer a different problem. Molly and Pete went to Cece's Pizza Buffet. While they were there, Molly ate 5/8 of a pizza. Pete ate 1/3 of a pizza. How much more of a pizza did Molly eat than Pete? What kind of problem is this? Well, this is a subtraction problem because I'm comparing two quantities. When I'm subtracting fractions, I need to do the same thing by finding the least common denominator that I did in the last problem. What's the least common denominator? The least common denominator is 24. When I change 5/8 so that the denominator is 24, what's the new numerator? Well, 8 times 3 is 24. 5 times 3 is 15. When I change 1/3 so that the denominator is 24, what's the new numerator? Well, 3 times 8 is 24. 1 times 8 is 8. Now I'm ready to subtract my fractions. 15 24ths minus 8 24ths. When I subtract, my result is 7 24ths. Molly ate 7 24ths more of a pizza than Pete. Now you try one. George mixed paint. He used 1/8 gallon of red paint and 1/2 gallon of yellow paint. What is the total amount of paint that was mixed? What kind of problem is this? This is an addition problem. I combined two quantities and need to find the total. Go ahead and add 1/8 plus 1/2. Let's see how you did. Well, when I add 1/8 plus 1/2, first I needed to find the least common denominator. The least common denominator is 8. When I change both fractions so that the denominator is 8, 1/8 remains the same. To change 1/2 so that the denominator is 8, I multiply by 4 in the numerator and denominator to get 4/8. When I add my two fractions, I can see that 5/8 gallon of paint was used. You've done a great job on this video. Now, answer the word problems on your practice page.